On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up to the soft patter of Seattle rain tapping against my apartment window. The gray skies were typical this time of year, but today, the weight on my chest didn't come from the weather. It came from the familiar tension I felt every November: another family reunion, another exercise in restraint. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the sleek carry-on suitcase I'd packed the night before. My passport, ID, charger, noise-canceling headphones, all checked off. What I couldn't check off was the gnawing feeling in my stomach. My name is Vanessa Reed. I'm 35 years old, a cybersecurity consultant for a Fortune 500 company. I earn a comfortable $175,000 a year and live alone in a high-rise apartment in downtown Seattle, overlooking Lake Union. My life is quiet, stable, efficient, just the way I built it. But when it comes to my family, no amount of security protocols could shield me from the emotional landmines. This year's Thanksgiving gathering was set at a high-end eco-resort nestled in Sedona, Arizona. All expenses, as always, were covered by my grandfather, Raymond Barlow. He's the patriarch of our family and the only person whose opinion I've ever truly cared about. A self-made man who built a real estate empire from the ground up, he also taught me everything I know about managing money, and more importantly, about protecting my peace. Independence is the only real wealth, he used to say. I took those words seriously. In contrast, my younger brother Gavin took the opposite route. After barely scraping through college, he married Alana, an ex-beauty queen turned mompreneur who treats social media like a full-time job. They live in a gated community outside Denver with their 2 kids. A house that's far beyond their means, and a lifestyle that's completely underwritten by grandfather's monthly checks. My parents? Retired in Scottsdale. Or at least pretending to be. Their retirement plan consists of grandpa's generosity and their delusions of superiority. I was never the favorite. Too quiet. Too logical. Not family-oriented enough, they said. Gavin, on the other hand, could set fire to the backyard and they'd still beam with pride. Still, I attended every Thanksgiving trip without fail, not because of them, but because of Grandpa. It was the one time each year I saw him in person, and despite all the dysfunction, it reminded me where I came from. But this year, something felt different. As I zipped up my suitcase and slipped on a neutral-toned cashmere cardigan, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Straight posture. Minimal makeup. Clean lines. Composed face. A woman who had spent years building a life from discipline, focus, and quiet defiance. And yet, beneath it all, anxiety. That lingering, shapeless fear that this year might be the one they crossed a line I couldn't come back from. I checked my phone, no new messages in the family group chat. Gavin had posted a boomerang of champagne glasses clinking on Instagram stories last night, captioned, "Can't wait for Sedona Sunshine Sun #family first." I wasn't tagged. I never was. I took a deep breath, grabbed my suitcase, and called a car to the airport. In the elevator ride down to the lobby, I mentally ran through my travel plan: SEA to PHX, 2-hour drive to the resort. Arrival just in time for the welcome brunch. Simple. Clean. Contained. But deep down, I knew better. With my family, nothing ever stayed simple for long. Outside, the car pulled up. And the driver greeted me warmly. "Heading somewhere warm for the holiday?" he asked. "Sedona," I replied. "Family trip." He nodded knowingly, as if he could already sense the drama simmering beneath my calm voice. As the car merged onto I-5 and the Seattle skyline faded in the rearview mirror, I stared out the window and braced myself. This Thanksgiving, I had a feeling something was coming. I just didn't know yet how far they'd go to remind me that, in their eyes, I didn't belong. And I didn't yet know that this time, I wouldn't just walk away quietly. The small regional airport in Phoenix was buzzing with holiday travelers, families in matching sweatshirts, kids clutching iPads, couples bickering quietly about car rentals. I moved through it all like a ghost, my mind already in Sedona. The resort was 2 hours away, nestled in the red rock canyons that glowed orange under the late afternoon sun. It was called Solstice Ridge, an eco-luxury wellness retreat that boasted meditation domes, saltwater infinity pools, and personal concierges. Rooms started at $950 a night during the holidays. And thanks to Grandpa, every one of us had a room. Or so I thought. As my driver pulled up to the resort entrance, the desert wind whispered through the tall sagebrush. I stepped out of the car, my navy suitcase rolling quietly behind me on the flagstone path. Bellboys in beige uniforms moved briskly under the adobe-style archway. Inside, the lobby was an open-air oasis, polished stone floors, crackling fireplaces, and a scent of sandalwood that clung to the air like a secret. I walked to the front desk and gave my name. The woman behind the counter smiled warmly, typing away. Vanessa Reed, Just a moment. Her fingers danced across the keyboard. I waited. Shifted my weight. Strange, she murmured, eyes narrowing slightly. I do have a reservation for Mr. and Mrs. Reed, that would be your parents. And a suite for Mr. Gavin Reed and family. But I'm not seeing a separate reservation for you. I blinked. Could you check under Vanessa Barlow? I offered. Sometimes my grandfather used our maternal surname for arrangements. She tried again. Still nothing. Behind me. I heard it, the sharp click of heels and a familiar voice laced with syrupy satisfaction. Oh no, Vanessa, Alana said with a faux gasp. Did they lose your room? That's just tragic. I turned around slowly. She stood in a crisp white romper and oversized sunglasses, though we were indoors. Her manicured hand clutched a glass of rose. Her other hand rested casually on Gavin's arm. He gave me a weak smile, eyes darting toward the check-in counter, not saying a word. Alana let out a small laugh. I told them to keep things simple this year. One suite for us, one for Mom and Dad. Just the core family, you know? We didn't think you'd actually come. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe. But, nice outfit. Very, functional. I said nothing. My fingers gripped the suitcase handle tighter. The resort staff looked uncomfortable, glancing between us. Alana leaned in, lowering her voice just enough. It's not personal, Vanessa. It's just. Grandpa's been spreading himself thin, and we thought it would be better to prioritize those of us with actual responsibilities. Kids. Spouses. Real family. There it was. Real family. A term weaponized like a slap across the face. I looked toward my parents, seated across the lobby in the lounge area, sipping cocktails beneath a towering cactus sculpture. They'd seen me. They didn't wave. They didn't get up. My father looked away. My mother smiled faintly at Alana. My jaw tightened. But my voice stayed level. I see, I said softly, nodding once toward the staff. Thank you for checking. Then I turned and walked away. Wait, Vanessa, don't be dramatic, Alana called after me. It's just one night. You can figure something out. You're resourceful, right? I didn't answer. I stepped outside into the blinding sun, pulled out my phone, and called for a car back to Phoenix. As I waited by the driveway, I heard footsteps behind me. Gavin's voice, hesitant. Vanessa, hey, maybe I can talk to the front desk, we could. I turned to face him. Don't. You knew. His mouth opened, then closed. He nodded once, almost ashamed. Then he walked away. The car arrived a few minutes later. As we pulled away from Solstice Ridge, I looked back one last time. My niece, Ava, stood on the steps holding a stuffed bunny. Her eyes searched the driveway. For a moment, I thought she might run toward me. But Alana appeared behind her and ushered her inside. The desert wind picked up. The sun was setting over the red cliffs. I was heading back to the airport. But I wasn't going home yet. First, I had a phone call to make. The car's interior was cool. Silent except for the quiet hum of the tires on the desert road. My phone rested in my lap like a loaded weapon, screen lit up with family group messages I had no interest in reading. I stared out the window at the receding cliffs of Sedona, their red hues slowly melting into dusk. I wasn't sad. Not really. Just clear. There comes a moment when even quiet people stop absorbing disrespect. Mine had come. I unlocked my phone and scrolled to a familiar contact, Grandpa Ray. He picked up after the second ring. Vanessa? His voice was calm, warm. Happy Thanksgiving, sweetheart. You're not at the resort yet? I inhaled once and exhaled slowly. I'm actually leaving, I said, keeping my voice steady. There was no room for me. A pause. No room? I wasn't booked, I continued, factual and measured. Gavin and Alana said it was only for real family. Mom and Dad didn't say a word. I wasn't welcome. His silence on the other end wasn't confusion, it was recognition. A slow, simmering kind of anger. I could hear the tension in his breath. In the way he didn't ask questions, because he already knew what they were capable of. I understand, he finally said, voice low and deliberate. Where are you now? On my way back to Phoenix. I'll catch a flight home tonight or tomorrow morning. Don't book anything yet, he said. I'll call you later tonight. But I want you to know, I'm proud of you. For walking away with your head high. Thanks, I whispered. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. I wouldn't give them that. I just thought you should know. I'm glad you told me, he said. I've been watching for a long time. Vanessa. Now it's time they learned what real consequences look like. We hung up. And just like that, I felt lighter. Not vindicated. Not victorious. Just, finally seen. I looked out at the Arizona sky, blue melting into orange, stars not yet visible, and let silence settle around me like armor. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Once. Twice. 10 times. Alana, Vanessa, please answer. Ava is asking where you went. Gavin, come back, okay? We can fix this. It wasn't even my idea. Mom, it's Thanksgiving. Can you try not to make everything about you for once? Dad, if you're going to throw a tantrum, do it after the holiday. Each message chipped away at the little patience I had left. There was no apology. No ownership. Just manipulation dressed up in concern. Using my niece like a human shield. Twisting guilt like a knife. I silenced the thread. Then came the emails. First. A lengthy one from Mom, typed out in perfect paragraphs. We didn't think you'd be coming this year. You're always so distant. So self-sufficient. You don't need us, Vanessa. But Gavin has a family to support. You could have just gotten a separate room. You make more than all of us combined. Honestly, it feels like you wanted to be excluded. Just so you could complain about it. Then from Dad. Don't make Grandpa upset over something so petty. You've always been the difficult one. Just let it go. Let it go? I had. For 15 years. The favoritism. The patronizing comments. The years of being left out of decisions, holidays, phone calls, birthday celebrations. I had let it go until now. And the moment I finally stood up, without yelling, without begging, they panicked. Because they knew. They knew I was the only one in the family who didn't need them. By the time I reached Phoenix, my inbox was full. I ignored all of it. Instead, I sat at an airport cafe, ordered a cup of black tea, and opened my laptop. While everyone else posted boomerangs of turkey and wine, I responded to 3 cybersecurity clients, filed a project invoice, and booked a last-minute suite at a hotel downtown. Not glamorous. Not 5-star. But quiet. Secure. Mine. At 9:42 p.m., my phone rang again. "Grandpa." "Vanessa," he said. "You were right to call me." His voice was firm now, businesslike. "Tomorrow morning, every one of them will get a message from my attorney. Effective immediately. I'm freezing all financial support, housing, school fees, health insurance, everything. No exceptions." I said nothing for a moment. "You don't have to do that because of me," I said quietly. "I'm not doing it because of you," he replied. "I'm doing it because of them. I gave them every opportunity to do the right thing. But they humiliated you, my granddaughter, on my dime, at my event." I closed my eyes, a slow breath catching in my chest. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "I am now." And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. The next morning, I woke up in a quiet hotel room in downtown Phoenix. The light filtering through the blackout curtains was soft, golden, and unfamiliar, but comforting. There were no screaming children. No passive-aggressive brunch banter. Just silence, and the distant hum of the city. I made a cup of tea, pulled the curtains open, and sat at the small desk by the window. My laptop blinked with work notifications, but I ignored them for now. Instead, I reached for my phone. 37 new messages. The first was from my grandfather's attorney. CCING every member of our immediate family. It was brief, formal, and ice-cold in tone. Effective immediately, all financial disbursements previously granted by Mr. Raymond Barlow to George and Meredith Reed, Gavin and Alana Reed, and associated dependents are hereby suspended until further notice. Any inquiries regarding this decision may be directed to this office. Below it was Grandpa's own message. To my family. Yesterday, I witnessed the culmination of years of entitlement, arrogance, and cruelty. You embarrassed my granddaughter at an event I funded. You dismissed her as though she were a stranger. Let me remind you all, without me, none of your lifestyles are sustainable. And Vanessa, who needed no such support, was the only one who ever honored this family with dignity. You've made your choices. Now you can live with them. Raymond. That was it. No room for misinterpretation. No, let's talk about it. Just justice. And then the chaos began. Gavin's name flooded my notifications. Missed calls. Voicemails. Panic. Vanessa. Please. Please pick up. You have to talk to Grandpa. We have no idea how we're going to pay the mortgage next month. Ava's school tuition is due Friday. You're seriously going to let this happen to your niece? Then Alana. This is your fault, Vanessa. You could have just stayed quiet. We were going to include you in the photos. Grandpa always softens when he sees those. Do you understand what you've done? Their desperation was loud. But it didn't move me. Next came Mom. I hope you're happy. You've turned him against us. Do you know how humiliating it was to be told by his lawyer that we're cut off? We might lose our retirement villa. Your father is furious. Then Dad. You've always been too sensitive. You could have just let this go. You never understood family. And now you've destroyed it. I read every word calmly, sipping my tea. It was stunning, really. How quickly love turned to blame when the money dried up. They weren't sorry they'd excluded me. They were sorry they'd finally been held accountable. Back in Seattle, my coworkers texted Thanksgiving memes and casual check-ins. I sent a simple reply, chose peace this year. Best decision I've made. I booked an afternoon flight home. Before boarding, I received one last message, from Alana again. A voice note. I hesitated, then played it with the volume low. He cut off everything, Vanessa. Everything. Do you even realize what that means? We have nothing left. No backup. And Gavin's job isn't secure, he was already on a warning. You've ruined everything we built. I hope that makes you feel powerful. I didn't feel powerful. I felt clean. Free. Like years of trying to prove I was worthy had been wiped away in a single 60-second phone call. On the flight back, I sat in a window seat, eyes on the clouds. I thought about Ava and the little gift I'd packed for her, a hardcover storybook and a handmade bracelet. Still in my suitcase, unopened. I hadn't even gotten to hand it to her. Maybe one day. When she was older, she'd understand. That standing up for yourself isn't cruel. That letting go isn't revenge, it's protection. I landed in Seattle just before sunset. My apartment greeted me like an old friend, quiet, still, exactly as I had left it. The skyline glowed in the distance, and the kettle whistled as I set it on the stove. 37 more unread messages. I didn't open them. Instead, I turned my phone face down, poured myself another cup of tea, and opened the windows. Outside. The city was already preparing for winter. But inside me? Something had finally thawed. It didn't take long for the cracks to deepen. By the following Tuesday, the family group chat, which had been eerily silent since Grandpa's email, erupted with chaos. Gavin sent a panicked message at 6:42 a.m. Anyone know how fast we can pull Ava out of Brookstone Academy without losing the semester fees? The school said our tuition payment bounced and they won't let her back in after Thanksgiving break. 4 minutes later, Alana added. I told you not to spend that much on the SUV. You said Grandpa would handle it. He didn't even respond to my text. Then Mom chimed in. Her tone teetering between desperation and blame. Your father and I had an agreement with the retirement community. We've already paid $150,000 toward our apartment. If we can't pay the remaining deposit by December 15th, we lose the unit. Gavin. Ask Vanessa. This whole thing started because she couldn't just get her own damn room. Dad joined an hour later. Don't drag Vanessa into this. She didn't lie to anyone. That caught me off guard. It was the first time in my adult life my father had ever defended me in front of the family. But it was too late. The house of cards they'd built, luxury SUVs, private schools, fine dining, early retirement, was collapsing. Later that week, I got an email from Gavin's company. Well, technically from their HR system. Apparently, I was still listed as a character reference from years ago. The email was brief. This is to inform you that Gavin Reed's employment with Techdyne Systems has been terminated as of November 30th, due to violation of company financial policy. I blinked. Then opened a private browser window and checked the local court filings. He'd been reported for using company credit to float his personal expenses. It was only a matter of time. The next day, a voicemail arrived from Alana. Her voice was shrill, ragged. He didn't tell me, Vanessa. I didn't know about the credit card debt. He kept hiding the bills, saying everything was covered. And now the HOA is threatening foreclosure. We have to sell. We're going to lose everything. For once, she wasn't angry. She sounded hollow. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. I spent that weekend curled on my couch, reviewing a proposal for a new cybersecurity project. I was being considered to lead the team. A 6-figure bonus was on the table. While I worked, my phone vibrated with more messages. Mom again. The insurance company just informed us that our premium assistance ends next month. The monthly cost will be $2,600 without Grandpa's subsidy. We can't afford that on Social Security alone. Then another. Do you remember the lemon bars you used to bake at Christmas? Your father keeps talking about them. Says the house feels so quiet this year. Maybe you could visit. I stared at that last line for a long time. Visit? The same people who had watched me be humiliated in a five-star lobby and said nothing? I powered off my phone. That night, I walked to the corner cafe near my apartment. The barista smiled as he handed me my usual. I took a seat by the window, watching the cold drizzle blur the lights outside. My life, by comparison, had never felt so sharp. Steady income. Paid-off apartment. No debt. No social performance to uphold. Just clarity. That clarity only sharpened when I received a final, unexpected message the next morning, from Gavin's personal email. Asterisk, I messed up. Bad. Not just with Grandpa. With everything. Alana's packing a suitcase. She says I ruined her life. She's not wrong. I was always jealous of how independent you were. I kept thinking Grandpa favored you, but the truth is, you earned his respect. I don't expect forgiveness. But if Ava asks about me one day, I hope you'll tell her I wasn't always like this. Just, lost asterisk. For a moment, something softened in me. Not pity. But something like, mourning. For the brother I might have had. For the family that could have been. For the innocence that wealth and favoritism had eroded in all of them. But I didn't respond. Instead, I went back to work. My new project team had their first kickoff call that morning. My name was listed as project lead. While my family scrambled to salvage their carefully crafted illusions, I was building something real. December settled over Seattle like a soft, damp blanket. While the rest of the city rushed through holiday shopping and tangled lights, I stayed anchored in the simple routines I had spent years crafting. Morning yoga. Black tea with lemon. Reviewing network architecture for my firm's newest client in Berlin. Peace wasn't loud. It was quiet, clean, deliberate. And it was mine. 3 weeks had passed since Thanksgiving. In that time, my apartment had become a kind of sanctuary, warm light, fresh eucalyptus by the window, stacks of technical journals beside my sofa. My life had returned to its rhythm. The outside noise, Gavin's desperation, Alana's fury, my parents' guilt, had quieted to a distant echo. They still sent messages, of course. The tone had changed, shifting from blame to pleading. Then to something resembling respect. Mom's latest email read. Asterisk, we've sold the retirement unit. The buyer agreed to a loss, but at least we're out. Your father's looking for a smaller place. We're researching Medicare plans now. I've been thinking about things you said years ago, about being prepared, about not relying on others. I wish I'd listened, asterisk. I reread that line twice. I wish I'd listened. It wasn't quite an apology. But it was something. Even Alana had changed her tune. Her Instagram, once a revolving carousel of curated brunches and designer outfits, had gone silent. No more #family goals. No more #grateful life. Just a single post, 2 weeks ago, a blurry photo of Ava holding a handmade ornament, captioned simply, New traditions. That got to me more than I expected. I hadn't heard from Ava directly since I left the resort. But last Tuesday, a card arrived in my mailbox. Plain white envelope. Neatly written block letters on the front. Inside was a child's drawing of a heart, colored in with pink crayon. Underneath it, I miss you, Aunt V. That was the only moment I cried. Not from sadness, but from something that felt like healing. She was too young to understand what had happened. But maybe, one day, she would. And when that time came, I hoped she'd remember me not as the bitter aunt who walked away, but as the woman who refused to shrink to fit a broken family's mold. Back at work, things were accelerating. The Berlin project was moving quickly, and I was now managing a bicontinental security team. The CEO had personally congratulated me in a call, saying, Vanessa, The clarity and discipline you bring to this team is exactly what we need. In a private Slack message later that day, one of the junior analysts wrote, "Thanks for not making me feel stupid in the meeting. You're the kind of leader I want to become." I stared at that message longer than I should have. Because for the first time I believed it. I wasn't just competent. I was respected. Not for appearances. Not for who I was connected to. But for who I had chosen to become. On a quiet Friday night, as the first soft snowflakes began to drift past my window, I pulled a small box from my bookshelf. Inside was a gift I hadn't given, a copy of The Little Prince and a bracelet I'd picked out for Ava before the trip. It was still wrapped in the same silver paper. I didn't open it. But I didn't throw it away either. Some things didn't need closure. They just needed time. Later that night, Grandpa called. We hadn't spoken since the attorney's email. "Vanessa," he said warmly. "How's my favorite cybersecurity genius?" I laughed. "Still safeguarding the digital world." He chuckled. Then went quiet for a moment. "I want you to know," he said, "I've updated my will. It's not about punishing anyone. It's about honoring those who live with integrity. You're the only one who's proven that." My throat tightened. "Grandpa, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said. "This family will rebuild. But it'll rebuild on truth. You're the start of that." After we hung up, I stood by the window watching the snow fall gently over the city. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt solid. Whole. Sometimes revenge doesn't come in flames or fury. Sometimes it arrives quietly. As peace. The second week of January arrived with an unusual calm. The new year had begun. But the world still felt like it was tiptoeing around itself, hesitant, waiting to exhale. My own life moved steadily forward. My mornings were filled with project meetings across time zones. And my evenings, for the first time in years, were free of emotional noise. There were no more guilt trap group calls, no passive-aggressive family dinner texts. Silence had become my sanctuary. But the emails hadn't stopped. They'd just changed. The first came from Dad. Short. Stripped of pretense. "Vanessa, I've been going through old files and came across your high school graduation speech. I didn't remember you were valedictorian." I read it again. "You said, resilience isn't loud. It grows in quiet places. You've always been that way. I'm sorry I didn't see it until now." I read the message 3 times. It didn't undo anything. But it made the silence between us feel less like a wall, and more like a hallway. Then came Mom. Hers was longer. Rambling. Unsure. "I haven't told many people. But I've started working part-time at the local library. Just shelving books, mostly. It's humbling. But it feels good to do something real. I've been rereading old cookbooks. I even made those lemon bars from Christmases past. Your father liked them. I thought of you the whole time." She attached a photo. 2 lemon bars on a chipped plate, dusted with powdered sugar. I didn't reply. But I saved the image. It was the first time in years she'd reached out without asking for anything. Then, unexpectedly, came a letter, yes, a physical letter, in Ava's handwriting. "Dear Aunt V. Mommy said I should write to you. I told her I wanted to anyway. I wore the bracelet you gave me last year. Remember the one with stars? I wear it even if Mommy says it's not matching. At school, we made a list of strong women. I said your name. My teacher asked why. I said because you don't let people be mean to you. I miss you. Love. Ava." Tears slipped quietly down my cheek as I folded the letter. Not because I was sad. But because even a child could sense what others refused to name. Boundaries are not cruelty. Strength is not selfishness. And sometimes the only legacy that matters is the one you live by example. That night, I sat down and wrote Ava back. I kept it light, told her about a snowy owl I'd seen outside my window, and how I was learning to cook spicy Thai noodles but nearly set off the smoke detector. I ended the letter with a short message she'd understand. Always wear your bracelet proudly. You don't have to match anyone to belong. I mailed it the next morning. It felt like sealing a promise, not to them, but to her. Later that week, Alana emailed me. Not a rant. Not a plea. Just a photo. It was their new place, a modest two-bedroom rental on a quiet street, a far cry from their former gated neighborhood. Ava stood out front holding a cardboard box, smiling. The caption read, "Not what I dreamed. But maybe what we needed." For the first time, I felt something shift, not just in them, but in me. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. And it didn't require letting them back into my life. But it did mean letting go of the weight. The need to be understood. The compulsion to prove I was right. Because the truth no longer needed defending. It was living, breathing. Visible in every crumbling facade they were now forced to face. The next Sunday, I attended an investment workshop downtown. We discussed legacy portfolios, risk buffers, and compound growth models. It was nerdy and niche and exactly the kind of room where I belonged. During the break, a woman next to me, a pediatrician from Boston, smiled and said, "You seem so grounded. Like you've done the hard work already." I smiled back. Maybe just enough to know what's worth holding on to. Spring arrived in Seattle almost without warning. One morning, the rain stopped. The clouds lifted, and cherry blossoms bloomed along the sidewalks like soft confetti. It felt like the city itself had decided to begin again, quietly, without asking permission. And in many ways, so had I. 3 months had passed since the Thanksgiving that fractured my family and freed me at the same time. I had been promoted again. Now, I was officially the director of cybersecurity operations, overseeing a team of more than 50 analysts across 3 continents. My salary had grown. So had my savings, my investments. And, more surprisingly, my sense of peace. But the greatest shift wasn't financial. It was emotional. There were no more invisible chains tying me to roles I never chose, the dutiful daughter. The silent sister, the disposable guest at someone else's curated life. I had walked away. And the world didn't collapse. In fact, it had opened. Each weekend, I began volunteering at a local nonprofit that taught teenage girls about digital safety, financial independence, and online self-protection. They were sharp, curious, and bold in a way I hadn't allowed myself to be at their age. When one of them asked, "What made you go into this field?" I didn't say money or job security. I said, "I got tired of people telling me I didn't belong. So I built a life where no one had the power to say that again." One Friday afternoon, as I was leaving the center, I got a text from Grandpa. "Package arrived?" When I got home, a small velvet box was sitting on my doorstep, wrapped in a navy ribbon. Inside was a single, exquisite piece of jewelry, a gold compass pendant with a tiny sapphire in the center. A card was tucked beneath it. In his elegant handwriting. For the one who always found her own direction. Grandpa. I held the pendant in my hand for a long moment, letting its weight settle in my palm. I didn't cry. I just breathed, fully, deeply, like I hadn't in years. That night, I made dinner from scratch, played my favorite Miles Davis record, and read until midnight. The city glittered below my balcony, but I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I wasn't outside the party anymore. I was exactly where I was meant to be. A few days later, another letter arrived. This one, again, from Ava. A drawing this time, a girl standing on a mountaintop. Wind in her hair, stars above her head. Underneath. "Someday I want to be brave like you." I pinned it to my refrigerator. Not because it flattered me, but because it reminded me why walking away, even when it hurt, had mattered. Because someone had been watching. And learning. And waiting for permission to do the same. That weekend, I visited a small lake outside the city, just me, my journal, and the compass pendant around my neck. I skipped stones until sunset. Then sat beneath a willow tree and wrote 3 words at the top of a new page. No more shrinking. I didn't need a reunion to feel whole. I didn't need their permission to feel seen. My family may or may not heal. Some bridges, once burned, aren't rebuilt, and that's okay. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to fix what's broken. It's to build something better. Somewhere else. With people, or maybe just with peace, that you chose. Have you ever felt like the outsider in your own family, just because you chose a different path? What part of Vanessa's journey resonated most with you? Was it the quiet strength she showed at the hotel? The peace she built after walking away? Or the way she stood firm without ever raising her voice? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know. When was the moment you realized you didn't need to prove your worth to anyone but yourself?